Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tom's Comic Curios, where once in a while you get a video, which not very often. I'm not saying that I'm returning to making videos or not, but I just felt like making a video tonight. I know it's been a very long time, and for those of you that are still there, and anyone else, new people who might discover this channel, thanks for coming. You never know, I may make another video again someday. Who knows? But anyway, today let's get to the subject. I'm going to talk about a comic book, which is one of my absolute favorite comic books of all time. And I felt propelled to make this video. I haven't been very motivated to make videos for a variety of reasons, but I felt propelled to do this one because there isn't a single video on YouTube about this comic book. Nobody knows about this. It's like, I feel like hardly anybody knows it exists. And I think it's a really, really great comic. It's meant a lot to me over the years. I probably discovered it like over 20 years ago. I don't even know at this point. It was a long, long time ago. And I've reread them so many times. And I don't think people know what it is, so I want to talk about it. I want to try to give it its due here on YouTube, because nobody else has. And that comic is called, well, originally it was called Lycra Woman and Spandex Girl. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, wow, really? This is a great comic book? But it really is. It's not what it sounds like, and I'm going to try to prove that to you. And I'm going to try to show you the value of this comic book. Eventually, they changed the title to Spandex Tights later on. But I'm going to get into that whole thing. The whole story is probably going to be a long one. So let's get started. To understand the origins of Lycra Woman and Spandex Girl comics, we need to go back to and talk a bit about the original publisher that published this comic book. You can see up here, this is the very first issue. It's Zone Publications, you can see. Right here, right there. Zone Publications, published by Comic Zone, which was a company in the early 90s, which in the early 90s was a fascinating time in comic books, much like the 80s. I've talked about the black and white comic book boom of the mid-1980s when I talked about Laughing Gas and Blackthorn, and I mean, I could talk about a lot. I have a lot of comics from that time period. I love that time period in comics, where it seemed like anybody could publish at that time. Well, in the early 90s, there was somewhat of a resurgence of that, just for a little bit, when there all these oddball small publishers came out of nowhere and had a little bit of success for like a year or two. I don't know what it was about that time, but it happened. So a publisher came along, Comic Zone Publications, and it was the publisher was Rich Rankin and his wife Patricia Rankin. They ran the company, and I believe they had a comic store called the Comic Zone, and they named their comic book their comic company after their store. And they started publishing in late 91, and they stopped around 93, I think it was. So they weren't around very long, so 91 to 93. And when they first started, it was a really weird publisher. They started off by publishing a comic called Eagle, which had been published by Pacific or something like that in the 80s. And I think they may have worked on that comic. I'm not sure you'd have to look that up, but I don't want to get into the whole history because I want to talk about the Lycra and Spandex comic, of course. But anyway, they did that, and they also published some adult comics. One was called Sex in the Cinema, and one was called Class X Illustrated. And they're really gross comics. I don't own any of them. Okay, I mean, there was a time when I tried to buy everything published by some of these oddball small publishers because I just wanted to, I like weird stuff, right? But I did have a couple issues of that and I threw them out because it was just, it's gross adult stuff. There's nothing good about it. So the reason they did that too is because it's an easy buck to make. Back then, there were a lot of adult titles, like by Eros Comics, which I think was a division of Fantagraphics and everything, and a lot of them they were just published for the money, because they made money. They were not great comics, but they made money, and because sex sells, obviously. So they were known for publishing some titles like that, and they also published another really successful controversial title called Psycho Killers, which I also don't own any of. I've seen them in the dollar boxes, but I really don't want to have comics about killers, and like real life killers, and it's not something I'm interested in. What those comics were biographies of actual psycho killers throughout history, and they sold really well too. Big surprise. But they also got in trouble for selling those comics, and they were in the media, and they tried to defend it as freedom of speech and all this, and that's a whole other thing I'm not going to go into, but that's what the Comic Zone publisher was known for, publishing these kind of titles like that. But amidst all of that, they just published weird stuff. They published some that were actually interesting, at least to me. And I'll show you the ones that I do have. Legends and Folklore was a title that they published that lasted for 3 issues. And 4 issues, actually. And it's not badly researched for a comic of this type. What it is it's about folklore, about myths and legends in their culture. So this one's about vampires, and where does the vampire legend come from? It examines Bram Stoker's, contribution, of course, with Dracula, and weirdos that think they're actually vampires that are out there in society. And it talks about just the mythos throughout popular culture and things like that. They had a companion series to this comic called Screen Monsters, which was about the Hollywood versions of these, and not just Hollywood, but Hammer movies and everything, about these monsters. So they had a vampire one in that as well, about the movie versions of vampires throughout the years and the history of that, which is also really interesting. I don't have those though. I sold those a while back, but this one's about just vampires in general and the folklore, not about the movies. So the second issue was about werewolves. So it's about werewolves and where that comes from, and again in our culture, it's interesting. It's just interesting stuff. And there's only 3 issues because this is the last one. It's about voodoo and where voodoo came from, and a lot of text in this one. It's very well researched, and if you're interested in these subjects and you want to learn more about them, these comics are a fun way to do that. Actually, they're just interesting. So there are those, and then the Screen Monsters also did Godzilla. They did Mummies, I think. And I think they did a werewolf one there too, as well. Okay, then they had one called UFOs, Alien Contact, which these were supposed to last longer, but the company didn't last very long. So this only lasted for 1 issue. And this is all about UFOs, about, Roswell and the beginnings of that in the 40s and everything, and different encounters that have been reported, and theories and things like that. So this is fun. If you're interested in paranormal stuff or phenomenon and things like that, these are fun comics. And they're oddball comics. Like I said, I like oddball titles. Then they had one called Freaks of Nature, which was about circus freaks. That's what they used to call them, which is not a very nice term, but it was people that worked in circuses, as you know, like the bearded lady, um, uh, you know, the pin-headed people, or the dog boy, or whatever. So, and they made a living doing that based on like their deformities and stuff, and it's actually a sad thing. But this is the story of three actual real famous circus people from that time, and it's kind of heartbreaking actually. Especially you read like her story here. Um, it's very sad story about how she was exploited and everything, and her husband was the guy that exploited her. He married her, you know, and just made money off. Oh, it's a real sad. Anyway, I won't get into the whole thing. And there's about this girl that was sort of like hunched over, like humped over like this. They called her, what do they call her? Like a camel girl. Her name was Ella Harper, and she's a real person. You look these people up on the internet. So this is little biographies of these people, and it's done in a sensitive way. It's actually done in a sensitive way. This comic, despite the title, that's just for sensationalism. But you know, and that's what they called them, sadly. But anyway, then they had one called Classic Comic Book Ads of the '60s, which is, you know, these are, like I said, these are weird comics. That's why I like them. It's about the weird comic ads that you saw in comic books in the 1960s, just like it says. So about the sea monkeys, selling live monkeys through the mail, the Polaris nuclear submarines. They said, oh, you get this huge sub and everything. It's just made of cardboard. Um, you know, it's a fun little. They show you the ads and they provide commentary on them, and it's funny. It's funny and it's fun. By the way, there's the logo on the back of the Comic Zone. They had some humor titles. I love humor titles, parody titles. One of them is Red and Stumpy, which was a parody of Ren and Stimpy, which was a huge cartoon at the time. Not one I ever watched. It doesn't appeal to me at all. But this is, you know, this is fun though. It's still fun, you know. Day of the Dead Superman. This is a parody of how DC Comics killed off Superman, 92 I think it was. This came out in 93, around the same time, and how it's all a marketing ploy basically, just to make money. That's what this is about. So it takes the perspective of comic store owners working at the Comic Zone, and does a parody like of how their customers react and all this kind of stuff, and it's fun. It's weird that they did it, but it's fun. And it also includes like a Batman parody in it as well, I think. Because there was probably a new Batman movie that year. And then Defective Comics. This one was really good. So this is a parody of the Fantastic Four #1, Spastic Four. And you flip it around and it's parody of the Justice League of America from the Brave and the Bold, I guess their debut. And they try to make the comic look like the original comic, not just the covers, but inside the comic as well. And they go through like the panels and everything in the original and tell the story, but it's really, really funny. So, I mean, if you like Mad Magazine and Crack Magazine and things like that, and Wacky Packages, this is really good. And it's sad that they only got one issue out before they folded the company, because this was a very fun title. So after all that, let's finally get to the comic that I'm here to talk about. I'm just going to put these back. I have all my Comic Zone comics in the same box here. I just took them all out to show you. And except for these ones, these are separate because I keep all my... I mean, look at how many of these there are. So for a comic nobody's ever heard of, there's quite a few issues. So let's get started. So they wanted a new title that would be sort of, because their adult comics were selling so well, right? So they, I can't even remember the names. I gotta look this up. Okay. I haven't read these, I've read them a lot, but it's been a while since I've read them, although I did read the last issue a few days ago. Yeah, okay, so Mike Avon Oeming was one of the creators of this title, and it was written by Bryan J. Glass, who's really good. He's a really good writer. And it was originally penciled by Michael Avon Oeming, but they had different artists later on. Okay, so there you go. So, and he did the cover here as well. Now, his artistry is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but I do prefer the later look of the characters and how they evolved, because the comic book did evolve over time. It got better as it went on, although it was pretty darn good right from the beginning, I have to say, and I recommend all of the issues. But the publishers, I guess, wanted another adult title, and they wanted, what they wanted to do, Michael Avon Oeming and Bryan J. Glass, is they wanted to do a homage or a tribute to a Croft show, a Marty Croft, Sid Croft TV show. They had like a super hour or whatever in the 70s, right? I never watched it, so. But on that show, there was a recurring serial called Dyna Woman and Electra Girl, I believe it was. Dyna Woman and Electra Girl, something like that. You can look that up, and some of you might have watched it. I've never seen it. I've seen bits and pieces on YouTube, but I've never actually watched like a whole episode, because I was curious, because this is a parody of that. This comic, that's how it started, as a parody of that Croft show. And that in itself was a parody of Batman Robin. So it's a parody of a parody. But it's so much more than that. So Lycra Woman and Spandex Girl, it's a definite parody of that. I mean, it mirrors it. So how do I don't know where to start. I don't even know where to start. But so the publishers wanted another adult type title. And they didn't really want to make it an adult title. They just wanted to make a good comic that was a homage to one of their favorite 70s cult shows, right? And it's very funny. This is really, really funny. And it's really clever and witty. But they were pressured into putting adult situations into the comic, but it never gets into, like, the area that their other adult titles that I mentioned earlier. It never gets in that far, anywhere near that far. It's hinted at strongly in the earlier titles, in the earlier issues, I mean. But there's nothing graphic in it or anything like that. It's still like, not for kids, because there's adult humor and innuendo in it, but it's more cleverly done. It's not like those other comics, right? And as this title went on, and eventually they self-published it, which I'll get to later, they took out all of that, and they just made it a fun humor, like superhero type comic, but a very humorous one, and again, very much like Dyna Girl and Electra Woman. So, in this, okay, the first issue is the story is called Slave to Fashion, and they have a different. They usually have a different villain in each issue, because it's like a superhero kind of thing, but it's really funny. In this one, she's a fashion plate. She's really into fashion, and and that sort of thing. So the original artwork is like this, which it's good. It's good artwork. Although this was the very beginning, and it like I said, it evolved over time. But it's still, there's a lot of text in it too. There's a lot of reading in this comic, but it's worth it, because the the dialogue is hilarious. It's hilarious. It flows really well. And I think they really transcended. I mean, look at all the dialogue there. They transcended the source material, their inspiration, the Croft series, by just really like, you care about the characters. You actually care about the characters in this comic. And I think that a lot of people don't know about this comic or haven't given it a chance. It's not easy to find, I have to say, because they probably think it's just a fetish book. Let's be honest. They probably think it's a fetish book because it's Lycra woman, Spandex girl, but it isn't. I mean, some people will probably, look at it that way. People that are, well, you know what I mean. But anyway, it's certainly, it's so much more than that's not what it is. It's really not what it is. It's just a really fun, well-written comic book is what I'm trying to get through to you. And sure, it's got cheesecake in it, but what's wrong with that? I mean, like, there are pinups and things like that. As you can see here, it's a very good artwork, actually. Very nice. So, now I'm going to say that. Okay, Lycra woman is the older member of the duo. She's in her 20s, and she has a fitness show on television under her alter ego. Her real name is Deborah Hall or Debbie Hall. And Lycra woman is her superhero title, right? You know how it works. Spandex girl is her teenage sidekick. So it's like Flex Woman, Dyna girl, and like Batman, Robin. So she's in high school. I think she's a senior. I don't know if she is at the beginning in high school, but she is by the end though. And they both have a fitness show on television, right? I mean, well, it's Debbie Hall's show, but she's with her on the show, and her name is Susan Strang. And I think those names are plays on the I can't think of the word, the secret identities or whatever of the characters in Flex Woman and Dyna Girl. I think their names are similar to that. I'm almost positive that they are. So they battle this villain, and they have a boss, right? Now, the funny thing is, in the Flex Woman show, in the Croft show, their boss was a man. But for some reason, they turned him into a hamster. I think he's a hamster or a gopher. I should know because I've read these so many times, but he's either a gopher or a hamster. And he never says anything. No, he never says anything. He just talks in dots. But he's the mastermind of their secret operations, their superhero operations. And he's brilliant. But he never says anything. But they can understand him anyway, which is really interesting. So, the first issue, like I said, they battled this woman. Well, this is actually, there's two stories. This one here is about a lady who, she uses paste, I think, as a weapon in this. And it turns out she has this background. She turned into a villain because I think her horse was killed or something. She left it out of a stable and it got turned into paste or something. And actually, I have to say, there's a lot of funny stuff in here, but there's a lot of moments where there's drama. That you really care about the characters. You even sympathize with this villain because she had this traumatic childhood and turned into this person like this and everything. Like, I'm telling you, you care about the characters, like all the characters. And then they have one of my favorite characters. They have Frank. Frank is this guy here that you see with the glasses. He always wears an ABBA shirt. Always. And I like ABBA. I think they're really good. But anyway, he's really smart. He's this really smart kid in school. He goes to school with Susie. And he has a huge crush on Susie. But she barely even knows he exists, right? And throughout the series, he often saves them. He ends up saving them. And she barely even notices. and so he always has this unrequited love for her throughout the series, and it's just like you expect, you know. And she's really not that nice a lot of times. Here's some more artwork from the first issue. I keep showing the first issue. Let's move on to other ones, but she's really like self-absorbed. She's narcissistic. She's not a nice person, but because she's cute and everything, he has a huge crush on her. You know, it's a typical high school thing, right? So, but there's character development though that happens over the length of the series, so it doesn't always just stay the same. Over the course of the series, she does start to notice him a bit more, and she starts to change as a person. I mean, she still is pretty throughout the whole thing. She's pretty narcissistic, you know, and she likes being a superhero for the wrong reasons. She likes the publicity, and well, you have to read it. And Debbie Hall's always trying to teach her, you know, right from wrong, and it's not easy with her. But that's one aspect of it. Okay, so that was the original issue. Now, every issue of the Comic Zone run was number one. They and I know that was a gimmick back then. You know, number one issues sell, so you know, publish more number one issues, right? Keep starting comics over from number one. It makes it confusing though for collectors. So I'll show you the order that they go in. So, and these ones are really hard to find. They're all really hard to find, to be honest. But these may be even more so, and I'll tell you why eventually. But this is the second issue, and they each have a lot of them have a theme to them. So this is a Christmas 1977 special. It's set in the 70s, just like the original Flex series, Flex and Dyna series. I think Dyna Girl had a saying, like Dynerific or something like that. I don't know. But in this one, Spandex Girl has a saying. She always says Spanderific all the time, which is a nod to that. So the Christmas special is the second one. Now, here's the thing. If you have these, you can look, because usually the actual number of the issue, even though it always says 1 over here, is hidden somewhere on the cover. Now, it's not hidden very, you know, it's not well hidden here. It's right down here. You can see it says 2 right there, right? 2. So that's how you know it's the second issue. So in this, you never know what they're going to get mixed up in. The stories are really, really fantastic and fascinating. You wonder what's going to happen, and you're kind of on the edge of your seat. At least I am, you know. So, yeah, this one has Cthulhu in it, the Christmas one. So if you want to see how they get Cthulhu involved, and there's a Christmas theme. You see they're putting up their Christmas tree and everything. Then you have to get this issue. I think Santa Claus fights Cthulhu. Cthulhu's Tide Greetings, it's called. You can see. There's the chief of police is named Brody, Police Chief Brody. There he is there at the phone, and he always tries to get involved in these cases and tries to stop these villains, but the police are always ineffectual, and it always takes Lycra and Spandex to take them down, and usually with help from Frank, because they usually get caught in some insidious trap by the villain in each issue, which, you know, they need to get out of, and Frank usually helps them out of that. Now, here's another weird thing about this comic book. The mayor of the city in which they live is a horse. There he is there. He's a talking horse, like Mr. Ed. I don't know why he's a talking horse, just like I don't know why Heflin is a gopher. But he is. He's a horse. It's weird because everybody else is human except these two characters. Now here's Heflin. He's really getting ready to kick some ass, as they say there. And you see they have like a Star Wars reference here because this was 77. This takes place in when Star Wars came out. The editorial pages are fun. The letters pages. This is... I'm sorry I say so often. I know it's annoying. People do that a lot. But okay, so Sky Owens did the pencils in the second story. And I really like his artwork a lot. I'm a huge fan of his artwork. So this is how they look when Sky Owens draws them. There's Spandex Girl and Lycra Woman at the back. So much good reading in here and fun reading. There they are. And there's the mayor. And his wife is a horse too. The two horses are married. And they have a news crew that shows up throughout it. There's a lot of continuity. And some of these early issues, they messed up the continuity for whatever reason, and they went back and corrected it when they reprinted a few of these early issues. Because they eventually reprinted, they wanted to reprint all of the Comic Zone issues. And I'll get to why that was. But they wanted to reprint them because they were so hard to find, but also because they wanted to take out some of the adult stuff, the humor that was in it, and remove it because they were uncomfortable with it. And they also wanted to fix the continuity problems in some of the early issues. We have Wake Up America. That's the exercise show. There's a pinup of it with Flex Woman and Spandex Girl there. Oh yeah, and they always, on the last page or so of the story, they usually introduce this villain, and who doesn't do anything. Like they say, oh, it's like a cliffhanger ending, and you say they're going to be fighting this villain in the next issue, but they never do though. It's never that villain. But this one is Stupid Guy. They do fight him though eventually. There's Frank with his as drawn by Sky Owens. You can see in his 70s like polyester suit there. Getting ready to disco. And they have some nice pinups in these, as mentioned. So that's the second issue. The third issue is the Valentine's special. So we had the Christmas special, now we have the Valentine's Day special. And there's a 3 down there. So I guess the numbers aren't really hidden. So you know it's the third issue, even though it says 1 up there. This, I think, was the naughtiest one. This was the one that really went a little too far for them. There's quite a bit of adult humor in here. I'm not going to get into it in the video. But this is the one with the discretion advised more with this issue. They started pulling back on it after this issue since they weren't comfortable with it. They fight this sexy chef called Ooh La La. And she does a lot of things with her pastries, you know. And there's these... Well, yeah, I'm not going to get into it, actually. You could read it if you want to. I mean, they're all interesting stories, but... And you can see... You see, like, they're tied up here and everything. You can see it's kind of, you know... But it's really well drawn, and the story is still fantastic. The stories are really fascinating, interesting, and you know, dramatic and funny at the same time. Like I said, and you care about the characters. You wanna see what happens. She bakes them all into like a pastry at some point, like, and they have to get out of it. They even get Frank in the pastry there. A passion for pastry, you see. There's another weird thing that goes on in this. So there's a lot of recurring characters. There's a psychiatrist or psychologist named Angela Pavisi, or I think it's Pavisi, who can't stand Flex Woman and Dyna Girl, and she wants to take them down. So she she in one of the very later issues, she impersonates them, or she impersonates Flex Woman, and tries to make them look bad in the media because people love them. Although the police chief doesn't. He doesn't like them. He thinks they're the cause of the turmoil in the city. He doesn't get it, you know. And the horse, though, the Mayor Hayseed, that's his name, Mayor Hayseed, he loves them. And he always calls them, you know, for help and everything. Like, I guess the mayor of Gotham City calls Batman and Robin. So, I said again, but, oh well, right? Yeah. Well, here's a really neat pinup. You see Batman and Robin at the bottom there. They're climbing up a building. But look, Flex Woman and Spandex Girl are already there. So that's a really cool pinup. So, people, you should give this title a try because it's not what you think it is. Not really. And I think it got mixed up. There were a lot of comics, like there were a lot of bad girl comics and everything in the 90s. There's a lot of comics that just seemed like they were for, you know, titillation purposes, basically. So, you know, some people thought, well, this comic might have got lumped in with them, but that's, like I said, there's a lot of sexiness in the comic and Cheesecake, but it isn't the be-all and end-all. It's not the raison d'etre of this comic. There's so much more to it. And by the way, the two creators of this went on to be quite successful in the comic book industry, and they wrote a comic called Ship of Fools that was critically acclaimed, and other comics later on. So, I mean, these are good. I mean, they're great artists and a great writer. So, this one is one of my favorites. This is the 4th issue, and then you got 4 down there, even though it's got the 1 up here. It's the Time Travel Special. This one is amazing. So, in this one, they travel through time, and they meet all these characters from popular culture, like Doctor Who, Marty McFly. Doc Brown is in this issue from Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future. It's like my favorite movie ever. And they meet James Darren from the Time Tunnel, and he plays a big role in it. I don't want to give it all away, but it's so good, and it's so well written, and it's so funny. Yeah, Susie's dating this hunk guy, like the star, like quarterback or whatever in high school. Yeah, this story's called Quantum Lapse. So Beckett is from Quantum Leap is in here as well. So she's dating him, and she always goes for the bad guys. I mean, it's just a typical thing, right? She goes for the bad guys, and she doesn't realize how nice Frank is, and, you know, how he's in love with her, and how he's so kind and caring and everything. And she just ignores him, and it's heartbreaking, you know. I mean, you feel for Frank, right? And the weird thing is he's got a teacher, Miss Thatchethead, who's in love with him, which is, you know, pretty weird. So Frank has a teacher that's in love with him, and she gets really delusional as the series goes on, and turns into a villain near the end. But she's a very sorry character with the psychological problems. So, I mean, all the characters are so well developed. You know, they're not like one-dimensional characters. They all have backgrounds. They all have reasons for why they are the way they are. And you're always hoping Frank's going to get together with Susie. You're always hoping that's going to happen. Now, here's Doc Brown in the comic. You can see him there. And is that James Darren down there? It might be. Oh, there he is there. That's James Darren there. His character from Time Tunnel. So this story is really involved. I mean, just look at this. Look at this centerfold page here of the story. It's got all the characters Well, it's got the characters like the football guys and everything from the school, but it's also got all the time traveling characters from popular culture. Like, look at them, like Peabody there, and the Doctor Who's, and like I said, and oh, there's so many. I think the ape guys are there from Planet of the Apes, Star Trek, um, like a lot of sci-fi and oh wow, there's just this. Look at this. This artwork is amazing, and it's such a great story. So if you want to, oh, even the Bill and Ted are in here because they do time traveling too in their movie, which I've never seen. Um, there's sometimes the writer and artist show up in the stories as well. There's so much going on here, so much. I mean, you really get your money's worth with this. There's a lot to read, and it's fascinating. And then there's even another story at the back, which focuses on Flex Woman and dating. She gets kind of like mesmerized by this suave, debonair guy who kind of hypnotizes her and gets her to come up to his place and everything. And Spandex Girl has to save her because he's the villain in that story. I mean, the suave, debonair guy. Anyway, that's a great one. If you can find it, that's a good one to start with. They wanted to reprint all of the Comic Zone issues, like I mentioned before, but I think only 2 of them ever got reprinted. And they're called Spandex Tights, The Lost Issues. And those are just as hard to find as the originals. The 5th issue is Jurassic Dinosaur Special. So this is when Jurassic Park was a big deal, and this is a parody of Jurassic Park. And Michael Crichton, or however you say his name, who wrote the novel, they kind of take the mickey out of him in this story. It's a pretty in-depth parody, as these all are, of Jurassic Park, and it's really, really good. They fight like this cave woman called Og, who has this ulterior motive behind bringing the dinosaurs back and everything. And this is number 5, but it's kind of hidden there. It's on one of the dinosaur eggs near the bottom of the cover, the 5. So that's another really great issue. And this one took me a long time to find. I had to order this off of eBay eventually, but it was really hard to get. This is a summer vacation special, number 6. Again, it just says number 1 on it. Now, if there is a 6 somewhere on this cover, I can't find it. So this might be the only one that doesn't have the actual number on the cover somewhere. They go to a tropical island. I don't think it's Hawaii. Oh, this is like mint condition too. It's beautiful. And that's not Elvis. I used to think that was Elvis till I read it. It's Jack Lord from Hawaii Five-0. He plays a big part in this issue. So there's a lot of references to other pop culture in this comic. And this is a great story. They're all great stories. And like I said, they get better as they go on. Starting with that time travel one and upwards, they get really, really good. So yeah, like I'm not gonna go through every issue, but it's just fantastic. It's just really good. Just looking at myself here. I'm not. Anyway. Oh, this one. I just said that was hard to find. This is one of the hardest to find issues. And I didn't think I'd ever get a copy, but I eventually did. I think the reason was this is the last one published by Comic Zone. It was just before they went out of business. So they probably didn't sell a lot, probably had low distribution. And these comics were ordered destroyed. So I'll get to that in a second. But this is it. It's number 7. There's the 7. It says 1 up there because it's a Halloween special. And this cover is by Adam Hughes, which means that it's even more collectible. There are a lot of people out there that collect just Adam Hughes covers. And I have seen a couple of videos where people show off their Adam Hughes collections. And at least one of them had the spandex in there. I don't think they read it. I don't think they knew anything about it at all. But they had it in their collection because it has an Adam Hughes cover. You're going to see this again, but I'll get to that. So anyway, this is the 7th issue. I always thought it was weird that it's in black and white, the cover. Very low distribution, very hard to find. But a very good issue, as they all are. There it is. Number 7. And, actually, this wasn't published by Comic Zone. This was supposed to be, but it was the first one published by Lost Cause Productions, which was their self-publishing company, Michael Glass and I guess I don't know, Michael Oeming or Sky Owens, I don't know, but the Glass self-published this, I'm pretty sure. And it's fascinating. This is like I said, it's a Halloween story. So the mayor gets turned into a vampire horse. He gets bitten on the neck by a vampire and turns into a vampire horse, and so he's the villain. The mayor is the villain in this issue. Ooh, he's pretty scary too. He's pretty scary, I have to say. There he is flying in the window there. And it's just these stories. There's so much action and excitement in them. Oh, and the centerfold. I forgot about this. Look at this. The centerfold is a full color Adam Hughes version of the cover. Beautiful. So that's what you get if you can find this, and it's still got the centerfold in it. That's what it looks like. Full color version of the cover. 2-page. Centerfold. Showcase Comics was a local comic store that helped them publish this, helped them fund it. So their mascot is in the story as well. It's got another one of those amazingly detailed crowd scenes in it. I mean, look at this. This is the Halloween party. I mean, just look at that. You can stare at this for an hour just picking out people. There's Tor and Vampira from Plan 9 from Outer Space in those movies, and there's like the Joker down there, and oh man, there's just so much going on. There's a Punisher back there I see, and you can just look at this. I don't know if you're getting I don't think my camera is clear enough to catch all the detail. There's just so much detail here. I mean, it's a pretty decent camera, but it's there's a lot going on there. There's the Showcase Comics ad there at the back. So this was the first one they published with it's kind of, their letter column was called "Win a Dream Date with Spandex Girl," and they did that because they wanted it to sound like one of those cheesy teen magazines that they'd have like in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. So anyway, that's the first one they published by themselves, a low distribution. So what happened is DuPont, the company that owned the trademark to Lycra, the fabric Lycra, they threatened to sue over the use of the word Lycra in the title Lycra Woman Spandex Girl. And they didn't have money enough to fight them in court, and they might have lost. So to come to an agreement with them, they said that they would never use the name Lycra again in the comic book or on the cover. So Lycra Woman could never be Lycra Woman anymore. She had to change her name. And they changed her name to Flex Woman. So in all the later issues, she's Flex Woman, and Spandex Girl is still Spandex Girl. They didn't even know that the word Lycra was owned by anybody, DuPont, when they, created the title. And they also said they had to destroy all copies of the original 7 issues. So a lot of them were destroyed. which makes them even harder to get. But they were undaunted. These guys, they really believed in these characters in this comic book that they had. And they're just, getting better and better, at doing these stories and these comics. So they said, we're not giving up. But they called their production company Lost Cause because, they figure it might be a lost cause, right? But they kept going. And they sold well enough. So somebody must have these comics. I don't know who has them out there besides me. But Spandex Tights #1 surfaced. That's what they called it after they had to regroup. They called it Spandex Tights, Adventures of the Aerobic Duo. And now you can see they used Adam Hughes' pinup as the cover for the first issue of the new Spandex Tights comic. So it's #1, again, because this is a relaunch, basically. It was about a year after. It was 93, that one, last one. I think this is 94. Yes. September 94, and that was October 93, so a year after. And, it was good before, and it might be even better now. The comic, they fight like the masked majorette in this issue. You can see. The characters become even more developed, the continuing storylines with each character. Are fascinating. Nobody ever recognizes, just like, in Superman and all those comics, nobody ever recognizes Debbie Hall as being Flex Woman. Even though she's got an exercise on show on television all the time. Even Frank doesn't know. And they don't know Susie is Spandex Girl. There's Spandex Girl there. They changed their look, especially Spandex Girl's look, quite a bit over the length of the comic. There's the Mayor Hayseed down there. So this is the first issue of the new relaunch. They started featuring Little Frank stories in the back as a backup, which would be Frank as a kid. And those are fun. I think Little Susie's in them too. Because I think they're in the same high school grade. So that's the first issue of that. And the second issue, they fight mobsters, mafia people. And I think that lasts for 2 issues. It's a 2-issue continuation story. So there's the first issue. It's got Flex Woman. She used to be Lycra Woman, you remember. Flex Woman on the cover. They're fighting the mob. You see one of the gangsters in the background there. And then the third issue has Spandex Girl on the cover looking like Rambo. And they see the gangster guy there again. So it's like a 2-part storyline. And it's great. It's really, really good. And the gangsters are all really unique. They're not just typical mobsters that you see. They're unusual and interesting. The fourth issue has a crossover with a character called Nightmare. So Nightmare was a comic, and that's him on the cover, was a comic published by Antarctic Press. So they showed up in a couple of issues of his title, Nightmare, which I've never been able to find. And he showed up in this issue of Spandex Tights. And the characters don't really go together, to be honest. But it was an interesting promotional event, except that Nightmare wasn't really successful. Partly because, or maybe largely because Marvel Comics sued or threatened to sue Antarctic Press because they also had a character called Nightmare at the same time, although I believe this one was invented slightly earlier. But they said, no, you can't use the same name that we're using. And they couldn't fight them because you can't fight Marvel Comics. I mean, you spend so much money doing that. So that comic didn't last very long. And then the 6th issue is, or is this the 5th issue? It's the 5th issue, sorry. This is the 5th issue. They go into the world of the sea monkeys. So you remember all these ads in the 70s for buying sea monkeys? And they're just really like sea brine or whatever you call that. Water shrimp or brine or whatever. And but in this one they're real. Like they go into like the kingdom of sea monkeys under the sea. And it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. The I believe, if I remember correctly, the one of them wants to marry Spandex Girl. I think the king of the sea monkeys. I can't remember the whole story, but but anyway, there's there he is on his throne, and there's a sea monkey guy there. Now that's Frank's teacher there. As you see, she's trying to seduce him there, which is all sorts of wrong. But he always tries to tell her that this is wrong, and she never gets the message because she's got problems. But that's an ongoing thing. Anyway, they get like trapped in these bubbles under the sea. I don't remember everything that happens, but there's always stupid guys involved in this one too, who's a recurring character. But yeah, there's a lot going on, like I keep saying. And then there's a little Frank story at the back, and there's a few others. There's a few other backup stories. You get a lot of reading in this comic. In the back cover, they even have a little story there. There's no ads, so it's just reading all the way. I mean, you get lots of fun reading in this comic book, and great artwork. So as soon as I get this back in here, the 6th issue. This also confuses collectors sometimes, because it actually just says the Mighty Awful Sour Rangers #1 on it versus Spandex Tights at the bottom. So you might not even know this is a Spandex Tights issue if you just saw this at the top, but it is. It's a very unusual one. As you may figure, it is a parody of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and it really makes fun of them. The Pink Ranger and all the Rangers basically, and it's very funny. But this one's really weird because the whole comic is drawn in the style of the Little Frank stories. So it's not drawn like the typical ones are. Very, very different artwork. But very well written. The artist is Doug Slack, who did the Little Frank stories at the back. There's a story in this one written by Dale J. Roberts, who is a trader, a collector and tape trader back in the days of VHS trading and whatnot. And I think he had the original tapes of Flex Woman and but Electra Woman and Dyna Girl from the Croft Show. And of course, back then there's no internet. It was hard to get those. So you could, get them from him, I guess. But and then there's a story in the second half about Susie in her home ec class, trying to get a good mark on her project and fighting some sort of like cafeteria monster. And Frank helps out a lot with that one. I mean, the story goes right to the back cover. I mean, this is just full of story. That's the back cover of it. Now, it's funny because the back cover says Spandex Tights on it, #6. Yeah, so that's where it is, #6. But a lot of times you'll see it like this, because that this is actually the front cover, which is kind of funny. I think it'd be the other way around, but so after that ended, they took a break. This was the second series, right? Took a break, and they published a special in the interim called the Spandex Tights Summer Fun Cliff-Hanging Death Trap Bondage Special #1. Now, so if you see this, like if you saw this in the Wizard catalog or previews or something, you'd say, okay, that sounds like a fetish comic. So, and this one isn't as good because there's not much of a story to it at all. It basically is just a bunch of pinups, this issue, by different people. I mean, it's good artwork, but it's more like those pinup comics that you'd see in the 90s, like the Sports Illustrated things, like Marvel, I think, did some of those parodies of them, and they just have their superheroes in swimsuits and stuff. A lot of comics did that, or comic companies did that back then, and it's sort of like one of those. I mean, this is all cheesecake, basically, this issue. There's a bit of a story at the beginning, which I'm showing you, but then it turns into all pinups, basically. Like, it's just. So I mean, if you like good girl art, and there's nothing wrong with that, then it has good artwork. I mean, it's just, if you're buying it for a story, there's no story, but I mean, it's got lots of like good girl art by all different people from all different companies. So you get all different styles, of artwork. So I don't mean to denigrate this comic at all. I mean, it's just not story. Like, it's not. You wouldn't want, if you're trying to get into this comic, this isn't the first one you'd want to buy. This is just, a pinup special, like I keep saying. But it has good artwork. Very, sexy artwork, of course, because that's what it is. That's what they all are, all the pinup comics of that time. And they're all different traps, right? So that's why it's called it's like a trap special. Okay. So, then they had a mini series, and this is really good. I really recommend this one, called Spandex Tights Presents Black Spandex. I have seen a couple of people again on YouTube that have they have maybe one of these issues and they don't have a clue what it is. Well, this is what it is. It is a mini series about Spandex Girl, and it's a parody of the Bad Girl comics of the 90s. So she turns into a bad girl. I won't go into the whole story, but she turns into a bad girl and she becomes really bad. And it actually gets really serious. I mean, the story gets really scary because this bad girl takes her over completely, her personality, and to the point where, because she kind of cracks under the strain she's been under as Spandex Girl, and it's sad, it's kind of sad actually. At this point, they start giving her pigtails, as you can see here. I think this is when they started that. So she starts, fighting, like she's got like the good side and the bad side here, and she's thinking, what should I do, but she, like I said, she becomes Black Spandex, which is the bad girl. And you keep hoping, like, I hope she's going to turn back to her good self, and, and it seems like she's going to, like, kill, like, people, like Flex Woman, like she actually, I think I don't know, maybe she did kill somebody in this. I mean, she becomes really bad. It's pretty, like I say, you know, there's like the two versions of her there. But it's I thought it was a very exciting, very suspenseful special, and you don't know what's going to happen in it, you know? I mean, you could probably guess, but you know how it's going to happen. So it's a good parody of the Bad Girl comics, but like I'm saying, their parodies transcend parodies because they, you know, there's so much more. They're so well written. They become great stories in themselves. And there's the second issue of Black Spandex, where look, she's like killing herself there, like she splits into two, and has to fight herself. I mean, whoa! I mean, that's pretty. You know, I'm sure it's happened in lots of superhero type comics, but it's pretty exciting. I mean, she has to fight her bad self in it, right? So anyway, that was a mini series, and then they came back for one last series. And this last one is also called Spandex Tights. They've started the numbering over again, so we get another volume 2, because the first one was Lycra Woman Spandex Girl, so they just called this volume 2 because it's volume 2 of Spandex Tights, even though it's actually the third series, not counting the mini series and the special. But it's all new number 1 issue. I love these covers. These are some of my favorite covers on the final issues. I just love the artwork on these covers. And that's Spandex Girl's new look. I think Flex Woman has a new look too, but it's not as noticeable. Really? I mean, they've changed a lot from the first issue, don't get me wrong. I mean, look at this. It's like night and day. They don't even look like the same. Look at that. So anyway, great artwork. Who is the cover artist? Painted by Sky Owens. So it's the same guy that does the all of the no, sorry. The cover painting is by Derek Richardson. I think that's what that says. Derek Richardson. But Sky Owens, his artwork inside is, look at it, it's even more like artistic and like a painting. It is a painting pretty much. I mean look at this artwork. It's even better. It's just unbelievable. So in the first issue, how do they fight in this? Oh, the Screaming Phlegm, which I did not like that villain. He's really gross, this guy. I mean, you can just kind of imagine. He looks gross, and you can imagine what he's like. This story is a parody. It's a parody of King Kong. So he's brought over from some island or whatever by this promoter, and he doesn't realize he's exploiting him. This huge giant, this monster thing, and they have to save everybody from this monster, basically. So that's what happens in the first issue of the new Spandex Tights. I mean, overall there are over like 20 issues altogether. So the second issue, Spanderific Fun, I like that, by Bryan J. Glass and Bob Dix, it says. So there's this funky guy, I forget what his name is, but he turns out to be an alien from outer space. He's just wearing a mask. He's actually an alien. And spoilers, he turns out to be a good guy. So they think he's a villain, but he turns out to be on their side. So after that happens, he takes him off into space at the end of the issue. And they have a 3-part parody of Star Wars called Space Opera. This is episode 1. So this should be collectible for Star Wars fans. And I know that the writer Brian Glass was extremely proud of this storyline because he was a huge Star Wars fan, I believe. And if you know Star Wars, which I don't, I mean, I just know what I've read about it, which is, I mean, it's everywhere in pop culture. I've never seen it, but you'll get a lot of the references that I don't get, though, like, or things I won't get. There's Frank and Susie, Spandex girl, on the cover there. So it's very entertaining, especially if you like Star Wars. And I have to say, I don't have the next two parts of it. So this is the third issue, right, of volume 2. And I've never been able to find number 4 and 5. I've read them online, so I have read them, but I've never been able to find them. So those are the only 2 issues I'm missing, besides one of the lost issues, but that's just a reprint of the first issue, that I don't have of Spandex Tights. So really the only 2 issues I'm missing are Spandex Tights 4 and 5 of Volume 2, the Star Wars Episode 2, Episode 3. Those are the 2 I don't have, so I can't show you those. Just haven't been able to find them. Like I said, these comics are not easy to find. So the next one that I do have is number... this should be 6, right? Yes. It's number 6. It's very dark cover here, in more ways than one. You can see, and I always forget what this story's about in this issue. I always forget. So let's just take a little look. So they come back from space after the Star Wars parody saga. Or saga, however you want to say that. They... Oh, there's a good flex woman. I think she's talking to the writer there. They're doing their exercise show. I don't know why, but this reminds me of Betty and Veronica for some reason. I mean, well, Betty and Veronica are high school girls, like Susie is. And I guess one's blonde and one's brunette. So that's why it's reminding me of Betty and Veronica right now. I still can't remember. Oh, this is good. This is really good. This is a turning point in the story because Frank is really getting tired of being taken for granted by Susie, helping her out and everything. But she has started, after the Black Spandex saga, I think he saves her at the end of that. Because he's always saving them, right? But I think he starts to turn her into a nicer person a bit. She starts to realize that she's not been nice all the time. But then she starts acting like a jerk again here. I mean, they have this could have been a tender moment here. He's carrying all her books home from school. And I can't remember what happens, but it harkens back to the Black Spandex storyline. So you see there's a flashback to it here. And about what happened. And so it's a continuation of that. Oh, yeah. And yeah, so she actually kissed him at the end of that. You can see right here. She finally gave him his due here a bit and realized what a great guy he's been. So I guess he's reminding her of that or something about what happened, or maybe her memory was wiped and she forgot about it. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's good though. It's good. So anyway, at the end of this, it leads into the next issue where she decides that she wants to have a contest where she's the prize, basically, where you win a date with Spandex Girl. So, yeah, win a dream date with Spandex Girl. And funnily enough, they said that this was the first storyline they ever came up with. But it turned out to be the last storyline they ever did in Spandex Tights. So, Susie is always trying to land guys, like hunky guys and everything, and trying to play up. Well, anyway, that's what she does. And she comes up with this contest where, you know, because people don't know she's Spandex Girl, right? And she's tired of, like, not being able to get the hunky guys in school and all that kind of thing. So she thought, well, if I can't get them, maybe Spandex Girl can, because everybody likes, you know, Lycra, I said Lycra, but Flex Woman and Spandex Girl. So as their alter ego, as their superhero identity, she says, you know, I'll have a contest, and whoever writes the best letter to me, the best entry, I'll pick them as the winner, and I'll go out with them. Basically, that's what it is. So this is the last story. This is a 3-part story, another 3-part story, and it's really good. In the Spandex Tights saga. So Dream Date number 1, the contest, is the first issue, and it's the 7th issue of the volume 2. So she's furious. Flex Woman is furious that she's running this contest, because she hates it when Spandex Girl tries to use her status, you know, for reasons that are not altruistic. She thinks, you know, as superheroes, they should always just be virtuous all the time and not use their position for personal gain or personal satisfaction. This, by the way, are the portraits that they always have on the inside front covers of the later issues. I think they're really neat. I really like this portrait they have. So, cover paintings again are by Derek Richardson in all these later issues, and I guess Sky Owens is the penciler, and Brian Glass is still the writer. So, oh yeah, there's this Catwoman type person who's a villain, and her brother is this really creepy guy that is trying to get Spandex Girl. So they fight them in this story as well. And then there's a whole thing with Miss Thatchet Head when she finally loses it. Frank's teacher. She finally completely loses it because he won't, return her advances. And she becomes the villain at the end in the last issue. But it's just good. It's a good story, and there's a lot of fight scenes in it too. I mean, if you like that, it's like there's Flex Woman beating up some of the bad guys. They aerobicize is what they do. They don't fight. They aerobicize because she has an aerobic show. They both have an aerobic show, so they aerobicize their enemies. That's what it is. I finally remembered that after an hour and however long this has been. There's the Catwoman villain in this issue. Yeah. So anyway, okay. So at the same time, like I said, they were going to republish the original issues to make them easier to get and to clean up continuity and get rid of some of the adult stuff. But this is the only one I have. I think they were going to publish like all of them, but I think only 2 of them ever got published that I can find out. Is even the Grand Comics database doesn't seem to know if anything was published after the 3rd issue, because they were called temporarily canceled after that. or listed as that in catalog. So I think there are only two. This is the second one. So this is a reprint of the Christmas special I showed you way back with commentary and edits. So this is the penultimate issue of Spandex Tights. This is number 8. Dream date number 2. Second issue. The date. So Frank writes the best entry. No big surprise there in the contest. It's very heartfelt. It is very beautiful, and she wants the winner to be this hunk guy who's an airhead, who's a really dumb jock guy, right? In the comedy, the stereotype. So she pretends that he wrote the letter or something like that, or because she finds out it's Frank, she doesn't. Oh, I don't want Frank. I don't want Frank, and so he gets rejected again, and it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, you know. She keeps going for shallow. She's so shallow, you know, in her taste. But she reluctantly agrees to go out with Frank because I think public pressure is put on her, or Flex Woman puts pressure on her, or something like that. She reluctantly goes out with Frank, but she stays away from him as much as possible. She doesn't give him much of a good date, you know. She doesn't even hardly dance with him or anything like that. And she makes it clear she doesn't even want to be seen with him or be with him, and she's still being a real jerk, you know. So poor Frank, and you know, he's got his John Travolta, you know, shirt and his, you know, pose there from Saturday Night Fever. So they go to the, you know, this dance, and she does everything she can to make it not very great. But in the last issue, Miss Thatchet Head, Frank's teacher, like I said, she goes bonkers, turns into the villain. That's her on the cover. Dream date number 3, the aftermath, because she can't have Frank, so she becomes the disco queen, and she starts she almost kills Spandex Girl, but Frank saves her at the last minute, and lets her realize that she needs help. His teacher, she really needs help, you know. And he appreciates her guidance and wisdom as a teacher, but, you know, that's as far as it goes, and she has to go get counseling, basically. So at the end, she finally realizes that she goes back to normal. Spandex Girl is saved again, and there's Bryan J. Glass on the back cover, by the way. He is the Area 51 caller for the Art Bell show. I don't know if you've ever heard the Art Bell call-in show where he'd investigate supernatural and paranormal things, and he'd take calls from people that said they experienced these things. So he did it as a lark. He called in this Area 51 caller, and the power went off when he did it, so it became very mysterious, and people thought it was real, but it was actually the writer of Spandex Tights that did it. And he tells the story in this comic in one of the editorial pages, and that's how I know. It's fascinating. So anyway, at the end of the comic, though, I was telling you what goes on. She finally realizes again what a jerk she's been, and she kisses Frank and gives him his last dance with her, and they dance to Dancing Queen by ABBA, his favorite group, and of course one of the greatest songs of the 70s, Dancing Queen by ABBA. And they do the whole song in the book, and they and that's how it ends. And the mayor's there dancing with his wife, and the two horses, and the police chief, I think, is there somewhere. And he finally has a good night. Frank has a good night, and Spandex Girl has a good night. It turns out all right at the end. And that's the end. And then at the last page is Happy 5th Anniversary Spandex Tights. Because they've been around for 5 years, this comic, that no one's ever heard of. Well, not many. And that's it. And that's the last issue they ever did. They said we might bring it back someday, but they never did. They started doing other things, and they got really popular doing other stuff in the comic book industry. So that's the story of Spandex Tights. I do know. Now, I said there were no videos about this comic on YouTube, and there aren't. Now there will be. There was a video made many years ago, like 15 years ago or more, that was on YouTube, where the guy talked about his like 5 favorite comic books or something like that, and this was one of them. Spandex Tights was one of them. So he's one of the only people I know of that is a fan, and I don't know where if that video's still around or it's probably long gone by now. There's also, because I always do research on this stuff, you know, I also did find a website where this guy had a website devoted to the Spandex Tights comics. And it's a very old website as well, so he was a fan as well. But that's the only 2 people I know of that have even read this comic that I've ever seen on the internet, and they're from way back. So I wanted to give this comic its due. I wanted to talk about it, and I did. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked this video. I hope you maybe seek out some of these issues. You can read them online, you know. But it's fun. It's more fun if you can find them, which is not easy, but maybe you can give them a shot, like read a couple online, and then if you like them, try to seek them down. You track them down, you know. Once in a while, you'll see one of these in like a quarter bin or a dollar bin. Once in a while. Not very often. It's rare. But if you do, I recommend that you pick it up and read it. Because, as I said, it's one of my favorite comic books. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And I feel like I'm supposed to say, because everybody says this, so that's why I don't do it usually. But leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about this video. If you'd like to see me make more videos someday, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know, but I hope you enjoyed this. Just getting it. I'll get it later. Okay, I'll see y'all. Have a great night, and I hope you read some great comics and look for the weird stuff. Look for obscure stuff, not just the famous stuff. And I'll see you all again someday.